Ladies and gentlemen, the reason that we have this side event, especially entitled How to Transform Food System, how we can end hunger more sustainably and more nutritious. This question is very difficult. It's of course challenging, but we here have quite a number of countries to share the experience, practical field experience, share their thoughts and views. And we also like to highlight why we are here. The 2022 SOFI latest report reminded us that undernutrition and hunger is not improving. Particularly under hunger being increased, and particularly for African countries. Undernutrition is also increasing. It's not been declining, and particularly many African countries will have a struggle to achieve their sustainable development goals. So the food system is challenged because it's unable to provide us what it's supposed to provide. The diet that is affordable for many poor, the diet that is healthy and nutritious, the diet is also not only affordable and available, it's also accessible to all. So that's why we need to talk how we can sustainably transform our food systems to achieve better diets and contribute to better nutrition. And that's why we need all of us here in this room to rethink and to get our thoughts together and see how we can contribute sustainably by joining our forces. With this, I would like to invite my partner, Madame Francine. She's the director of Shambat Center for Food and Climate. She has kindly agreed to moderate this exciting panel session. Francine, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nomin. So maybe I will start with maybe a few remarks as well. So the first one, let's first agree that if the food system is performing well, we should be able to see and acknowledge that more sustainable food and agriculture are participating in reversing climate change and environmental degradation while improving health and livelihoods around the world. Second, let's recall this paradox. In a world of abundance, still more than 800 people go to bed hungry. There is enough food produced in the world, but those without income are still starving or cannot afford decent meal or eat poor quality of food. Conflicts, climate, and underinvestment in agriculture and value chain were driving up hunger numbers before 2020. And it is true that COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine have lifted up to unprecedented food crisis. To get back on track on SDG 2, it is critical to pursue policy pathway that favors synergy and limit the trade-off between hunger, poverty, nutrition, and climate change. Lastly, political will matter. The United Nations food system has helped to create a political opportunity to intensify commitment to ending hunger. People around the world have been mobilized to think, to strategize, and to act to change food system. So today we are gathered here to discuss, to propose, and to innovate on how we can create a better food system. So I would like to thank you all for joining us today, and also maybe to remind that we are here also to move faster. And this we require to understand the trade-off and their associated cost. So I'm really pleased to call upon His Excellency, Honorable Lobin Lowe. His Excellency has been a Member of Parliament in the Malawi National Assembly since 2009. He will be joining us online, so I will call the technical people to facilitate the access from Kigali to Malawi, and please provide an opportunity to sue the Minister. He has been elected in Malawi Congress Party Chief Whip in the Malawi National Assembly. He served as leader of opposition in the Malawi National Assembly until his appointment as Minister of Agriculture and Food Security in July 2020. And prior to his political commitment, Honorable Lobin worked with the Ministry of Agriculture as an extension officer and inter-aid organization. He also founded and then he's been the managing director of Greenwood Farms, which specialize in the production of mangoes and banana. So I'm really pleased to welcome Honorable Lobin Lowe. I think we have a few issues with the technical. Is Malawi coming to us? Thank you. Honorable Lowin, the floor is yours.
Because we don't know how many people will be staying. But for the sake of time, I would like to point out three issues. First one is for a long time the country has been relying on investment in smallholder farmers. We have invested a lot, but at some point we have discovered that investment is not yielding enough to transform our food system. So we are going to engage another category of farmers, apart from these smallholder farmers. So we are including the small-scale, the big-scale farmers, so that we can go commercial production. We are actually speaking to our vision. We have a vision Malawi 2063, and this vision considers agriculture as pillar number one, and it is talking of commercialization and productivity. So the objective is to talk of commercialization and productivity. It's now time we invest in other categories apart from the usual smallholder farmers. And at the same time, we are implementing mega farming. Mega farming, because we have idle land in Malawi, which is not fully utilized, and considering that the smallholder farmers, their land is scattered, so we want to engage farmers who have land, vast land, that can grow special crops, that can be value added. So we are looking at hectareage starting from 500 hectares to 1,000 or more, so that as a country, apart from relying on tobacco, which is our main forex earner, we can now talk of other crops. So the other value chains could be soya beans, we are talking of groundnuts and others, so that apart from maybe relying on maize alone as staple food, we can also increase production of other crops like sweet potato, rice, more especially rice. We have mega farms in rice production. So at the same time, we are looking at other big projects that can sustain.
you very much, Excellency. Yeah, it's really a pleasure to hear the minister telling us how the country is really positive in trying to transform its food system, the challenges that they are facing, but also having clear objective in how to secure food security for their population and trying to attract investors in order to increase production in the country. So I hope the minister is still here with us. But meanwhile, while we are checking that he's here, I will call upon our panelists. We'll call upon Anne Turiano, who is the IFAD country director at Burkina Faso. Can you please take the floor? Beyond the stage, Malishaba Rosa Ketoa Matsla, who is the project director of Lesotho Small Order Agriculture Development, called SADP2 project, that is funded by IFAD, the World Bank, and the Japanese government, and the government of Lesotho. Please, you're welcome. I call Madame Fungai Kutiariopo, who is a nutritionist, a specialist from Zimbabwe. And please, we are well invited. So we have a nice gathering of wonderful women on the floor, but gender balance is really important, so I will call them in. Mr. Maki Abdallah Adam El Maleh, who is an agriculture engineer in Sudan. So welcome. So we did invite them in order just for them to provide their experience. And I think the whole idea about this gathering is to share experience, to understand what is happening in the country, and also to hear also from the audience. But before I give a turnout to our panelists, we will be doing a poll. And then I will call, I will ask you to to grab your phone and go to Mentimeter. So it's menti.com. So here's an opportunity. Usually they told you just close your phone, but this time we are calling you to grab it. And go to menti, MENTI.com. And when you are there, Mentimeter will ask you a code. Sorry, can you maybe go back and we need to see the code first for everyone. Thank you, Mr. IT. Can you back to the, yes, thank you. So the code is 9586 6858. I would like just to repeat, but you can see it on the screen. It's 9586 6858. And then you push the button submit, and then you will have few questions. And you need to pick one among sorry, I will read the question first, and then you need to choose one answer. The question is, how to end hunger sustainably and nutritiously? So, according to you, if we need to transform our food system and to end hunger sustainably and nutritiously, we need to increase, first, public and private spending on agriculture and food system. This is the question, the first question, response. The second one, improve public awareness on the importance of nutrition and pave the way for more nutritious diets with more local ingredients. Or, third, rethink how we produce and consume our food. Fourth, leverage collaboration and innovation for more effective, more sustainable, and more ambitious intervention for a sustainable food system. Or, offer investment incentives for natural positive and low carbon solutions in agriculture, food storage, and food distribution. So I will give you 2 minutes. to pick your and choose your answer. So I think you have already responded. We will get your feedback at the end of this first session. So I will turn to our panelists, and I would like to ask them one question that will help us start and maybe have set the scene. So the question is, what are the key success factors in achieving better nutrition through agriculture investments? So I will call for Malishaba to respond to that first question. Malishaba, welcome. We cannot hear you.
Thank you very much, Francine. I think I have 4 points. The first of which is we need to intensify nutrition education. By nutrition education is making everyone aware of what malnutrition is and how important malnutrition, actually the role that malnutrition plays in each country, and the importance that every stakeholder now comes into play, that we hold hands in addressing malnutrition. The second one is based on the first one, with the assumption that now everyone understands the importance of addressing malnutrition. All the stakeholders now have to make a commitment to say that we are going to find ways to address malnutrition. All stakeholders includes the government, the private sector, the farmers, and individuals, including donors like IFAD. The third one is we need to make sure that our initiatives are climate smart initiatives. That is to say, as much as in agriculture, we are going to try to find ways of increasing our production, we should make sure that while we are trying to achieve nutritious diets, we make sure that our initiatives in everything that we do, we promote climate smart agricultural practices. And the last one is that we need to create a platform of having nutrition grants. Nutrition grants are grants that are given to farmers so that we encourage production, because if we talk about climate smart agriculture, unfortunately, it's quite costly to make sure that we achieve climate smart practices. So the machinery used and the hybrid seeds, they are quite pricey. So we need to make sure that there are grants which are offered to farmers to sort of encourage them to go the CSA way. I think that is it coming from me. Thank you very much, Francine.
Thank you very much, Malishaba. Can I turn upon Anne, please, the IFAD Director in Burkina Faso?
Thank you so much, Francine, and good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Anne Turinayo, and I work in Burkina Faso, as Francine mentioned. So what has worked for us so far? And first, I start with an apology, because actually I just wish that I had someone from Burkina Faso themselves, the ones that work in the project here, but it was not possible for many reasons. I just do hope that the next one, they will be here. So what has worked for us so far, and what I think are the important things to look for when we are designing, implementing projects to facilitate nutrition, sensitive agriculture. Number one, we need to look at indigenous knowledge, indigenous solutions. We cannot just think that it will come from out there, because already there are crops that are very nutritious, that are very local and indigenous to the areas in which we work, and that we can better utilize in that time to everybody is familiar with that. So they're not absolutely, coming in from a different perspective. So that's one. And in this case for Burkina Faso, for instance, we've been trying to promote baobab, people eating baobab sauce. It's something they've done traditionally, and so they naturally find it easier to build onto that. Things like moringa, moringa grows all over the place and people just ignore it because maybe they've lost knowledge of the fact that it is very nutritious because we have an invasion of the KFCs and so on. And then promoting other quick win crops like the orange flesh, sweet potato, that's exactly what has been happening on the ground. Secondly, information sharing and accessibility. Access to information on what is nutritious, what should be merged with what, in order for a smallholder farmer to actually have a complete plate of food, because they're growing it, but do they have this awareness that this is what you need to have on your own plate in order to have a complete diet? And that's another important factor. So digital forms of sharing nutrition. And then thirdly, building onto quick wins. So you have, for instance, we are in an area that is Sahelian mostly, one rainfall season. That's very foreign if you're from the Eastern Africa. But where in Burkina Faso, we are working in an area where we have one rainfall season. So we need to make sure that people can still grow quick win crops like vegetables during the dry season. How do we do that? She just mentioned it. Climate smart agriculture, making sure there is access to water for agriculture in those seasons. And practically what has been happening with the support of IFAD and the working with the government of Burkina Faso is that we get underground water stored, and then it's used, pumped by solar pumps, to be used to grow vegetables during the dry season. And that's another quick win. And then finally, again, really still on climate smart agriculture, not just making sure that there is water for agriculture during the dry seasons, but ensuring that there is a continuous production of key crops. And that's, I think, to keep it short, I would stop at that for now. Francine, thank you. And over.
Thank you very much, Han. So I will turn again the same question to Fungai.
Okay, thank you, Francine. Good afternoon to you all. I think the best practices in making sure we achieve nutrition outcomes through agriculture investment, I think it's important that we have functional market systems. When we're looking at functional market systems, we are first looking at making sure the right seed is available to the people. If you want nutrient-dense crops to be grown, we need to provide the nutrient-dense seed varieties. They need to be available on the market, because once they're available on the market, it will result in the production of these nutritious dense crops. And once the nutritious dense crops are produced and the market is also favorable, such that farmers can sell their produce, it means nutritious dense foods is available for consumers, which they can buy and also they consume. And once they do that, it means we're going to improve the diet quality as well as the household dietary diversity. So we also need everyone to play their part in the market system, where we look from the farmer, the processors, and the aggregators. And I think secondly, availability of human capital is very important, where we're saying we can improve nutrition outcomes through agriculture extension officers, who are normally who are available because they reside in the areas where farmers are. And also, we need different cadres from different multi-sectorial structures or from different ministries, where we say we have the agriculture extension officers. They are key when it comes to agricultural production, but we also need people like the nutritionists who can come in with the nutrition education. Then we also have maybe education, where we can target young children and youth. And also we have maybe ministries like Women Affairs. So availability of these different cadres or the human capital at different levels is very important in ensuring we achieve nutrition outcomes through agriculture investment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So our last speaker, we would like to hear from him. the same question, please.
For the Sudan, for nutrition, I think our project is, which is the Integrated Agriculture and Marketing Development Project. The main issue is to sustain food as the main issue. Then we touch nutrition as a sensitive project. In that way, we have targeting women in close farms to their houses. We train the women. We supply them with seeds and training. And after training, they used to plant those improved seeds of vegetables to enrich the Jubraka. It's called Jubraka. It's the homeland near the house. It is almost half done. It's grown by the vegetables and fast-growing crops that can give the product early season and then can save the family before the bulk of the crops are established. So the Jubraka, we call it Jubraka, is very important in our Sudan, particularly in our areas where we work, which is marginalized areas where rains are fluctuating and risky to have crops. So to secure food, we go for Jubraka. We test the Jubraka with selected women. Those women are, as I said, they train, supplied with improved seeds. Early results shows that those women are dietary satisfied, and they sell part of their crops, and 1/3 they give it to their neighbors, and 1/3 is consumed. The dietary for them is changed, and they use vegetables instead of protein food. They also intend to make some processing of the improved seeds that they produce, making some jam from the eggplants and paste from tomatoes. And doing such things, I think most of the women are dietary safe, and they can withstand the adverse conditions of the short seasons of rains in Sudan. So Jubraka is very important, and we are thinking wise to expand our scale the Jubraka for all women, so they can have food, early food, and they can save their life. This is very simple about my project, and I am specialized in marketing and private sector, and this is what is going for nutrition in our project. Thank you.
So, thank you, Mikey, and thank you also for driving you through your project in Sudan. So I would like also to thank first the panelists, because among the success factor, you also defined key messages. One, it's how we can enhance nutrition education. It's really important what people are eating, and how also they are well aware of the food that they are consuming. The other issue was also the affordability of food. It's really important to continue producing, but we need also to ensure that people can afford that food, and this is an element that will come towards the conversation that we will be having later on. Issue is also the fact that sometimes we ignore the richness that we have, and ingenious solution and knowledge are among the key solution that we need to look at, and put really in advance for our population. And also, we do not to forget that we are living in a climate change crisis, and that climate smart agriculture is already a key, and that we need to pay attention to how we are developing it and how we are also strengthening climate smart agriculture, and we need to invest more on these practices. So I will go to the second question to the panelists, and I would like to know and to drive us through their own current project and expertise. This time I will ask each of them to respect these 3 minutes because we will have also some questions from the audience. The minister is not there anymore, so I will go straight to Malishaba. Malishaba is actually working on the second smallholder agriculture development project for Lesotho, which is an initiative that aims to support and increase adoption of climate smart agriculture technology in Lesotho. And they are also trying to enhance commercialization and improve dietary diversity among targeted beneficiaries. So Malishaba, we would like to know what key action or activity were done to facilitate the uptake of climate smart agriculture to support improvement of nutrition.
Thank you very much, Francine. It's a very interesting question. First of which I must indicate that the project I'm working with addresses food systems in general. We have 2 main subcomponents that work directly with food systems in general. Let me highlight that we have a CSA as a component, independent, to make sure that all of our initiatives are climate smart. The second is irrigation. Irrigation is very important to address everything, because if you want to produce, we need to make sure that there's water for us to do so. The fourth is, because we don't have 3 anymore, we have a 4th subcomponent, which is meteorology. This deals with giving farmers early warnings so that we are aware of the climatic conditions, and we make sure that everyone knows what to produce when and how to be ready. Then another component deals with marketing, which he alluded to. Marketing is very important to make sure that after our farmers have produced, there's a market to sell to. Then we have another component that deals with matching grants, which are grants which are geared towards commercialization of our agricultural products, to make sure that we have both the smallholder and the large farmers, like the minister indicated. We need all of these players working towards one goal, which is addressing the food insecurity in the country. Then we have a last component or subcomponent, which is a nutrition component. We didn't just let nutrition to just be one of the side things we are doing. We made sure that we have a component which deals directly with nutrition. And in dealing with nutrition, we made sure that we made nutrition sensitive platforms. These were platforms where now as a country we talk about how are we going to address malnutrition? What is it that needs to be done? Who are the key stakeholders? After identifying all of these people, we made sure now that we make nutrition awareness campaigns. Now we are going out to the communities, capacitating extension workers, capacitating farmers, to make sure that everyone is aware of what nutrition is, what needs to be done, and how we are going to get there. Then we made sure that we have inter-country exchange visits. These are facilitated by our donors like IFAD, to make sure that as different countries, we visit each other, see what each country is doing, which we are not, then we take points from each other. Another one is we have farmer field schools. We are aware that by the day, the funds that the government has are decreasing. We cannot afford extension workers or for our farmers to rely on extension workers. So we want them to come and capacitate each other. So we needed them to be educated. So what we did is we have demonstrations done on the plots of those farmers. That is what we call farmer field schools. We've been promoting that because this was one of the methods that was done a long time ago, but somewhere it disappeared. So we've been promoting that to bring that back so that we make sure that our farmers understand what needs to be done. But nutrition is at the core of our policies. We make sure that in everything we do, as much as our farmers are producing commercially, but they make sure that we choose nutritious foods. And we make sure that even in the seeds that we select, or in the practices that we make, we have nutritious foods, like we have NOAA 45. We've been promoting that a lot in our country. I think that's about it when it comes to implementation of SADP nutrition and climate smart practices. Thank you, Francine.
Thank you, Malisheba. So it's really important also, and thank you for your initiative and your work in your country. And so that's also part of the success in ensuring that if you have a project, you need also to design it from the beginning to the end, ensure that you are not only producing, but you are also working on the marketing side, and also ensure that there is a real market for the product. Ensuring that nutrition is well understood also by different partners, those who are also working those projects, those that are going to consume, but also ensuring that there is key platform where there is a continuous conversation among the different stakeholders. And also, I really appreciate the fact that share best practices, capacity building is part of that success story. I thank you for that. So we'll go now to fungi. So you have been recently affected. We are seeing this crisis, COVID-19, and going armed and political conflict all over the world. Plus the world is facing complex, frequent and intense climate events that disrupt agriculture and undermine the progress made in the fight against hunger and malnutrition. I know that now I'm referring to Zimbabwe, but I think that this conversation here and that question, maybe the audience would like also to address it, and we will be really happy to hear from your experience. So in Zimbabwe, you have actually your projects. So my question is, what nutrition-sensitive responses were implemented to face these multiple challenges?
Okay, thanks again, Francine. What the government of Zimbabwe did to respond to this, to ensure the food systems are not affected, agriculture was made an essential service, and also there were policies and measures that were put in place to ensure that farmers continue producing, and once they produce, their produce is transported to avoid losses, especially of perishable crops like the horticulture crops. We have a project that we got called the Rural Poor Stimuli Facility, which was there to cushion farmers or to recover from the shock brought by COVID. So with this program, we made sure farmers, when they produce their crops, they were encouraged to work in groups so that they can sell their produce quickly and also fetch a good price. And also what was done is that we moved away from, there were crops that we imported like wheat. Because of COVID, we became self-sufficient, where we began to grow our own wheat. Like for 2021, our target for wheat was improved with about 75,000 hectares. And we relied on using smallholder farmers and also the commercial farmers. And also another thing that we did was to promote resilient actions, where farmers were trained on nutrition. And you know, with COVID, there were lockdown measures that restricted gatherings and all. But what we would do as a project, we resorted to using other media platforms for communicating messages to farmers. We would use the SMS blasts. We would also make use of jingles, drama, and role plays, which were then shared on WhatsApp platforms, and also on farmer groups. And also another thing, farmers were to build their resilience. They were trained, especially women, because we all know with COVID, the workload of women, it sort of increased. And there was also the issue to do with gender-based violence. The cases, they sort of increased. So we came in with an approach that we use, which we call the Gender Action Learning System, which encourages communities to work together, the spouses and their children, and they can plan things together. In that way, you can help reduce gender-based violence, and also to take care of women because the livelihoods and also the income were disrupted. Women were trained on how to produce personal protective clothing and equipment. That goes from sanitizers and also how to make masks. They were provided with machine. And with that now, women are selling PPE for surrounding schools and surrounding business. They managed to diversify their business. Now they'd received training on nutrition and also cooking demonstrations on how they can improve their meals. So the women then diversified that. Now we have women groups which were trained on making personal protective equipment. They now formed businesses like bakeries and so forth. And also we have cases with schools. There was lockdown. So most school gardens, they were abandoned, and some schools did not manage to recover. So the government also decided to bring in nutrition in schools so that we also target the young children and the youth, where we were promoting nutrition education in school through conducting school health days and also revitalizing the nutrition gardens that were affected due to COVID. Yeah, I think in summary, that's what I can say we did through the Rural Poor Stimuli Facility to respond to COVID. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Fungai. Know that, yes, COVID is among the emergency situation, and we have been seeing a lot of innovative measures that government have been taken, and it was also important to recall that our government has been quite active in this, trying to provide solution for farmers, and especially for women who has been really affected by this solution. So thank you for providing us more guidance on what Zimbabwe have been actually acting in this particular crisis. So I will turn upon to Maki Abdallah. Maki actually is running the Integrated Agriculture and Marketing Development Project that also is financed by IFAD, that intend to increase the household income and enhance the climate change resilience of the smallholder producer, rural women and youth in rain-filled area of Sudan. And so they are trying to improve access to quality agriculture input and services, to enhance business skill, facilitate access to rural finance, and improve the organization and entrepreneurship. So Mali, you actually present the private sector specialist among our group. So in your opinion, what can we all learn from Sudan's project in transforming food system in a fragile context? And how can the private sector support this transformation?
Okay, thank you very much again. And I think Sudan is located in the semi-arid zone where there is fluctuation of rains, many problems of production. So IFAD support this integrated marketing and development project for main objective is to provide food to sustain food for the smallholders households. You see our conditions where we work, we suffer from shortage of rainfall, degradation of soil, with problems. We have low extension messages. So IFAD supports this project to make solutions for all these problems with small farmers. In the context of this, we support farmers with improved seeds, with extension, with technologies that conserve water in the arid zones or in the areas where rainfall is short. Also, we the package of inputs we give to the farmers. We have fertilizers. We use those fertilizers adaptability to the low rains, which is foliar fertilizers. You see, by the complete package, we are able to make farmers produce in marginal area, and they produce both cash and food crops. For the project is working in 3 crops, 2 cash crops, and 1 is stable food, which is sorghum. By doing this, putting an eye on the climate changes, we make the suitable solutions for every one of the constraints I have mentioned before. For the short rain, we use the short mature varieties. For the wheat problems, we have varieties that are resistant to weeds, and for the soil, we use implements that conserve water and make it suitable for production. By doing this, we came to good results that farmers are able to produce under these conditions. They are satisfied with food production. More than 85% of the farmers tested this piloting are satisfied with food, and most of them are now able to go to the microfinance, and others who attend the field days are able to go to the microfinance to have the technologies which you have tested with the selected farmers. And I think the INDP, or the Integrated Agriculture Market Development project, is working in areas where we have to put an eye for the macro climate changes. So we mesh all the necessary management and management techniques that can minimize or mitigate the climate changes. We use the short maturing varieties to overcome the shortage of land. We use the agroforestry so that we can encourage the forest growing. We go also for using, as I said, foliar fertilizers instead of applying fertilizers to the soil where there is no rains. By doing such interventions, the IMDP is able to make people, to make the farmers more confident about those technologies, and we start to link the private sector with these technologies. Nowadays, we have many companies join the project, interesting in distributing the inputs and other services that can be sustained for the farmers to get the services. To get the services from the companies, supporting by the microfinance, which is also has support from the project. All these actors working together in a manner that farmers are able to adopt those technologies and to have good progress, good products, and good products under such conditions of small rainfalls. And I think the experience of integrated agriculture marketing development projects is very sounding for those areas where there is a shortage of rain, by using, as I said, one complete package that will help much in production and mitigating the climate changes that may suffer much if not considered. And I think by doing this, the private sector and the microfinance can make the production sustainable, and the farmers can easily be aware about such interventions of both the private sectors and the microfinance. This is for the areas where we have supported small farmers with technologies and access to inputs through the private sectors and through the microfinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maki. So it is quite important that we recall that Sudan is really actually facing climate change more dramatically than other countries. And that we need also to take into account that in this case, technology matter, and that if it need to be scaled up, to increase production. And also to recall that there is a need of financial institutions to ease rural finance to allow small-scale farmers who is already facing very difficult challenges to try to continue this kind of production, and also use technology innovation is quite key in your context. So I will turn into to Madam Anne Touré now, who is a country director in Burkina Faso, and prior to this work, you had the same role in Sierra Leone. So I will call to your experience and from your long-term perspective and your opinion, what should countries take into account to transform their food system in order to respond to changing climate and recurring crises and deliver healthy diet in a sustainable manner? Actually, I will have two questions for you, Madam, if I may. So this one will be my first one. The second one, unfortunately, Honorable Minister has to leave because he has another meeting. Malawi commissioned an evidence-based cross-country roadmap to transform its agriculture and food system in a way that end hunger, make diet healthier and more affordable, and also improve the productivity and income of small-scale producers and mitigate and adapt to climate change. So the report has been actually developed by IFPRI, and they found that the country needs to spend 543 million per year. I know that you may not be aware of that study, but I was wondering if maybe you can provide your opinion on what is the value for research and evidence to assist the country to better decide on the potential trade-off when you have this in mind. Thank you very much, Madam.
Thank you again, Francine, and thanks to the panelists and to those who managed to make it to this event. What can countries do to sustainably ensure that we have nutritious food systems? Well, I wouldn't say there is one particular answer, but I think that we need to change the way we've been doing things, because it looks like for the past long period, countries have been doing the same things over and over again. And so we find ourselves always going back to the same issues. But what can we do differently? I think what we've seen from experience is that in countries where we have the political support, political will of the leadership, that's the first, the starting point. When you have a leadership that is supportive of this direction, then you're going to have everybody else falling in line. So that would be a very big win if we could have, you know, all, as the minister in Malawi said, that the president supports this, the president is, because when you have the political will and support, then the investments, the money will follow that direction as well. Okay, so we will not struggle with investments if people take this as a priority. So that's the first thing. And with that, we'll get into the policy environment, creating an enabling environment to ensure that we are not just having, we are not just doing business as usual, but we are going to actually transform the way we do business to have value chains that are nutritious, that focus on nutrition, to have this included in the whole infrastructure of a country. For instance, let's talk about the silos between ministries. You have a Ministry of Agriculture doing their own thing, pushing production, productivity, irrigation. You have the Ministry of Health doing another thing on one side, and these two are not talking to each other. So one of the other things we can do is, can we break these silos? Can we have the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Health talking to each other, knowing what the other is doing, so that they are working together towards this common goal? Because the Ministry of Health will know what are the priorities to improve the nutrition in a certain area, and then the Ministry of Agriculture will work to ensure that we are meeting those needs. And then, of course, the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, for where they are, to ensure that we include the women, we include the persons with disabilities, we include the youth. It's important that we don't have the silo approach, but we have a connected approach amongst the different ministries in the countries. I think for me, that would be very important. And then also have comprehensive models to agriculture. I think Madam here on my right mentioned earlier that you have to also ensure that in schools we are teaching about nutrition, etc. But this just can't come out of thin air. You have to be thinking of a whole comprehensive approach. When you think of a household, how do you ensure that this household, when they are supported with anything, let's say an IFAD project, as most of my colleagues here are managing, is it doing activities that address all the issues in the household in terms of not just food security, but nutrition security, and not just for a period, because projects will come and go, but sustainably. That cannot just be done by an individual. You need a comprehensive approach. And then public-private partnerships. We're not going to ever do this single-handedly. No government can do it alone. No individual donor, funder can do it alone. We need to bring in the private sector. We need to have the public sector, the private sector all working together. So I would like to emphasize as another point the importance of public-private partnerships. The private sector should be on the part of the conversation. The small-scale farmers themselves should be part of the conversation. The SMEs should be part of the conversation. If we have traders who are doing the buying, the bulk buying, they should be part of the conversation. Okay, so in most cases, if you have what we call the multi-stakeholder platforms, which bring together all the actors along a given value chain, you're going to have a more interesting conversation. And then, of course, someone mentioned, I think, knowledge sharing. You may be aware about the South-South Triangular Cooperation, making sure that the lessons that have been learned in one area are transferred to another area. And at this moment, we can build onto the digital economy that we have. So using the digital means, you know, you have the internet now, everybody has a mobile phone, even in the most rural areas, you know, how are we using those facilities to promote the knowledge sharing that builds on sustainable agriculture, sustainable food systems, sustainable and resilient nutrition approaches. Well, I think, as I said, I may not have all the answers, but that's it. And then on the issue of research and development. So I started by talking about the political will, political support, enabling environment. Now, all this is what is going to direct the investment of a given country. What they consider as a priority will lead us into what they will invest in. And one of the things would then be the research and development, because that, again, informs the kinds of policies that a country is going to have. And, you know, have, for instance, a baseline of how many other children that are undernourished in a given country, and what is our plan in the next 10 years to actually reduce this number to half, quarter, or to zero. You know, the way we have set ourselves up with the 2030 SDGs, but at the moment, everybody knows we are again falling back on those, but at least we have somewhere to start from. So research and development, very important, because A, it will inform policy, it will ensure that governments are making the right decisions, it will then inform the kinds of investments that are going to be made by the different stakeholders, whether they be, you know, donors, private sector, which area are you investing in? But how do you know that that's the right area to invest in? You need the research, you need the data. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam. So this is really great, and I would like also to thank you for your wonderful highlights. So I will maybe just come to some. So there's no blueprint, there's no one solution. And that's actually why we are here. We are today more than 2,000, if I'm not mistaken, that came today to Kigali to think how we can transform our agriculture. And this is really important, and this is only in Africa. The question is, the political will is really important, but we need to go further. No more talk. We need to go to action. And we know how the action are there. We need the evidence for that, we have the research for that, and we already know what is not working. That's why actually you told us. The enabling environment need also really to be there, because we need also to be in that agreement. While we are acting, we need to have transparency, clarity, and we have also to have all our stakeholders to actually commit. And the other thing is coordination. Coordination among our ministers, coordination among ourselves, because there's no solution alone. We need to stop the way that we are working. It doesn't work at all. We need to start working together to transform our food system. And finally, we need money. And the money is the key. And I will leave the care to you, madam. Yes, definitively we need money if we need to transform our food system. So I would like you to come to the audience. And if we have questions, please, our panelists are ready for that. Madam?
Thanks for the moderator and thanks for the panelists because they give good information about the situation and the action. I am Fatima Al-Hassan, the National Convener for Food System Transformation. I just want to add to my colleague, Dr. Makki. He was talking about the project, IFAD project, which has a milestone in nutritive agriculture. But from our perspective of food system transformation, we look, now Sudan is registered in many states as high malnutrition rates. And the reasons behind that is not only the production. It is the access to food, nutritious food, and the access to nutritious food and the food culture. Because even in some states, they produce very diversified food, but the culture and the education also, the literacy is one of the problems. So because we look at these gaps in our country for improving nutrition, we join many coalitions that can support our nutrition situation in the country. We join the coalition of healthy diet, the coalition of school meals, also because the primary school students, they are facing high malnutrition rates in some areas. Yes, Gubraka and home gardens, they support the nutrition. But as actions, first, we start to implement some school meals for the schools in the vulnerable areas. And also we have a project supported by FAO in healthy diet. We choose most high malnutrition rates states to start our project. The second thing is, as I said, that the access, because of the economic situation in vulnerable areas, it is one of the problems. For the coordination, fortunately, now Sudan has a very successful institutional setup, food security and nutrition institutional setup. At the technical level, we have food security and nutrition technical secretariat, and at the higher level, the political level, we have what is called High Council for Food Security and Nutrition. So the Minister of Health can communicate with the Minister of Agriculture and with the food. So we have no problem in this coordination. Also, as an action, we request the network, the global network for food crisis, and now they will launch a mission to Sudan to make an assessment for the gaps for food system transformation, and they promise to support us. Also, all the resident country organizations, they are working with us fully, and they promise to support. Now we develop our pathway and the action plan for food security, for system transformation till 2030. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam. I will maybe give the floor to Nomin to continue providing the floor to the audience.
Okay. So, yes, please. If you could also introduce yourself, so we know who you are.
Merci beaucoup pour la parole. Je vais m'exprimer en français, je m'excuse pour ça. Moi, c'est Richard Maïcha. Je travaille pour l'organisation People in Need, et la mission en RDC. Ma question va s'adresser à l'ingénieur agronome. Pour les projets intégrés au Soudan. J'ai vu, on a parlé. Oui, j'ai vu, on a parlé des engrais, de l'utilisation surtout des engrais chimiques. Alors, je voulais comprendre comment leur impact à long terme sur l'environnement, mais également sur les systèmes alimentaires est analysé. Évidemment, sur les bénéficiaires qui doivent un peu récolter, bien entendu, les cultures, pendant que peut-être la rémanence n'est pas encore atteinte. Donc, c'était ça ma première question par rapport à l'impact des engrais chimiques sur l'environnement et sur les systèmes alimentaires. Ma deuxième question, c'était pour les projets présentés de nutrition. J'aimerais comprendre comment ces projets prennent en charge les enfants qui sont déjà gravement affectés, parce que en attendant les présentations, c'était déjà, c'est en termes de prévention de la malnutrition, mais comme déjà dans nos zones où nous on travaille, parce que nous on travaille dans les volets de nutrition, on a souvent des cas, et là c'est pour des zones fortement enclavées, où on trouve qu'il y a déjà des enfants qui sont, et beaucoup plus les enfants de moins de 5 ans, qui sont fortement touchés, et les femmes enceintes. C'est un peu ça. Je peux répéter? Ok. Je vais résumer, c'était par rapport à comment les projets de nutrition prennent en charge pour les cas déjà qui sont déjà, pour les cas gravement qu'on doit trouver. Et parce que les projets, j'ai vu qu'ils touchent beaucoup plus l'aspect prévention. Et donc, c'était un peu ça. Et peut-être pour aussi rajouter tout ce qu'on a parlé là-bas, nous aussi, on met en œuvre. Mais également, on rajoute aussi des séances de démonstration culinaire qu'on rajoute après la récolte, parce que nous également, on fait des projets intégrés. Mais nous, on rajoute aussi l'aspect wash, parce que l'accès à l'eau, hygiène, assainissement, c'est aussi capital pour nos interventions en nutrition et en sécurité alimentaire. Merci.
Okay, so maybe I will ask some of our panelists to comment, if you wish. Anne, would you like to?
I think the first question was specific to the gentleman from the Sudan to tell us how the use of chemical fertilizers is impacting long-term the environment and therefore food security. So I think we'll leave it to him. And then the next was on the nutrition project.
Yes.
For the
So
ladies.
please, the panelists, the floor is yours. Maybe Mr. Maki, would you like to respond?
Thank you for these two questions. And I think for the fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, we have two kinds of usage. We use microdose, what is called microdose, very small traces of chemical fertilizers. We put them with seeds to initiate the root germination so that the root can get down to reach the water. This is only microdose for the chemical use. For the foliar fertilizers, you see sometimes for the field crops and not for the jubraca or for the vegetable which are consumed directly. For the field crops, we use foliar fertilizers. That fertilizers can be dissolved in water and applied by spraying. this kind of application has very minor or negligible effect on the quality of the product, as the research said. This is my comment on your two questions. No mass use of fertilizers in rainy or the marginal rains in Sudan. We have what is called microdose 3 to 2 pieces put with the seeds in the soil, and for the root initiation only, and not for anything more. Thank you.
Before, still on the fertilizer question, for me, I think what would be our concern right now is the fact that due to the crisis in Ukraine, and then prior to that, the COVID crisis, we've had actually very limited supply due to the fact that the supply chain was broken. And now we will need to think how we can produce fertilizers on the African continent, and particularly in the different countries, so that we don't have to import them from all the way, and so that the farmers can get them, access them maybe much easier and perhaps even cheaper. Okay, so that we are not just reliant on, on importing them from abroad. I think that would be a key factor to consider in the different countries concerning the fertilizers. On the science of how they affect the soils, I think the scientist has responded to that. Thank you.
Thank you. We will take 2 more questions, and after that we will, yes, one more.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting to hear from specialists how they link productions to accessing to healthy diets. I just have one question that is very important. We all know that there is no food security without food safety and the quality assurance. And I would like that they shed a bit of light on how they are mainstreaming the issue of food safety and quality assurance into the whole activities they are implementing. Since that, if you look at the issue of food safety across Africa, it's really linked to healthy diet, and you experience a lot of people dying or getting sick. Just to give you a bit of example from Uganda, around 40% of diseases are from foodborne diseases. So that's the question I want, that I get a bit of clarity. I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself. I'm Jean-Marie Biakwere. I'm a senior police officer working for FAO in Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean-Marie. To who are you addressing that question? All of them. Perfect.
Okay.
So I will go here and then you.
Thank you very much, madam. My name is Guillaume Nyagatere, and I'm from the University of Rwanda. And I'm myself a soil scientist and an agronomist. And I would like to, what I'm asking is both a reflection and a question. And the question is, as we've been talking about food, healthy diet, and I've been asking myself, can we truly address that issue without also addressing the question of relationship between the farmland or the rural world and the cities? And I'm thinking, drawing from my own experience, when I see areas where we have fertile land, but where we have also at the same time malnutrition among the children, linked with the fact that farmers tend to produce for a market that is not necessarily turned into healthy market, but rather on what the cities and the urban areas desires to have. And sometimes what they want and what is healthy, those are two different things. So then the question is, how do we address the issue, or we equilibrate that relationship between the rural world and the cities that have purchasing power? And two, how do we think of the relationship between the farming area with, say, centers of knowledge, so that we bring knowledge closer to the farmers and, in fact, have them contribute to the generation of knowledge? And this is addressed to, well, probably all of them have been touching this, and I would like to hear what they have to contribute on that. Thank you, madam.
Thank you very much. Before you respond, we'll take the last question, and then I will give you the floor.
Thank you so much. My name is Peter Christopher. I'm from Tanzania, from the bank, the financial institution. I'd like to talk on climate financing, because it's one of an aspect in improving food systems. I think financing is an important aspect that we have to consider. And with an experience that I got from the working with the financial institution, is that most of the smallholder farmers have been locked to finance. And this has been a challenge. Most of the commercial banks are neglected to finance because of the risks associated with agriculture. So as a panelist, and I would like to hear what has been an intervention from the financing part. As IFAD and other private sectors, there is a need to secure cheap source of funds so that this commercial bank can unlock financing to these smallholder farmers. And we all know that financing has not to go to only smallholder farmers. It has to go to the entire value chain of agriculture. That is from the producers, from the input suppliers, from the agro-processor side, even the dealers who are buying and selling somewhere. So I think this is an important component, and I think we have to sometimes to rethink on the policies that we have. How do we integrate, how do we reform our policies so that we can at least de-risk this agriculture component as far as financing is concerned? Thank you.
Thank you very much, all of you. So we will give the floor to the audience before going to the session number 2. So please, Mikey.
Okay. I know you start, and my colleagues will complete. For Dr. Jami from Uganda and Prof. From Peter from the University of London, and I think for the fertilizer or for the quality assurance, we are working in rain-fed sectors. The use of fertilizer is, I cannot say it is prohibited, but it is used, as I said before, in very special cases, microdose or foliar fertilizer, where there is no mass use of fertilizers in rain-fed conditions. Most of our products, cash crops, sesame or groundnuts, are considered organic produce, because no application of mass production, as our colleague said here, for mass production. We use fertilizers in very rationalized way. That's why our groundnuts and sesame are considered to some extent organic, and many companies are working in exporting such products in an organic way, and they have fulfilled the trade fair requirements. No objection of using those microdose and foliar fertilizers. And I think for the financing small farmers or smallholders farming in rain-fed where there is risk of repaying of the funds. Our project IMDP has a memo of understanding between 3 microfinance institutions working in the areas where we have applied our project in 4 states. All these microfinance have branches there, and IFAD has supported them with revolve fund, so to encourage adoption of the technologies which I have mentioned before, to upscale the technologies to to a big number of farmers, and to increase production. The early results shows that there is a high rate of repayment, from those small farmers, although there is hesitation from the big banks to borrow the small farmers. But the exercise which we have done with farmers adopting the technologies has given a good results that are capable to refund the money they borrow from the banks, the microfinance institutions, and save some of the products for selling or for other use. And I think this kind of intervention, it should be expanded and to be practiced in other areas. Those microfinance institutions need support. They are not able to finance large number of farmers unless they will be supported. Yeah. So IFAD support 3 of the big microfinance institutions in Sudan, particularly in our project area, and they are able to provide finance for small farmers. This is our experience in financing small farmers, and it is very genuine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mashib. If I may, can we maybe ask our panelists maybe to respond to the question maybe in less than 2 minutes, because we have the Minister of Malawi who would like also to take the floor after you. Thank you very much. Malishiba.
Thank you very much. I'd also just like to add that for quality assurance, we have made sure as a country that we have the crop production officers, horticulture specialists, and irrigation specialists. We also have an environmentalist to educate the farmers so that with everything they produce, they make sure that they take care of their environment, assuring that whatever they're producing will be safe. Another thing is the question of bridging the gap between the private sector, what the market wants and what is produced. COVID-19 has also helped us a lot in that for our country. Unlike most countries, our health system was not up to par. So we only had to make sure that you ate nutritious things. You had to sustain and survive from COVID on your own. So making sure that your body is resistant was the #1 thing. So this helped us because we had been educating people about nutrition. So COVID-19 was also proof that if your body is resistant, it can help a lot. Then for financial systems, as an institution, we were financing or giving people grants to just make sure that we capacitate the machinery they had to buy for their initiatives. Unfortunately, we found that there was mismanagement of funds. Now we opted for what we called a restricted account. This is where now those accounts had to be managed. We made sure that our farmers forged a relationship with the banks so that as you ask for funding, your funds are transferred into the bank, but we co-sign with that farmer, and they are required to open another subsidiary account so that they start learning how to save, start to establish a certain relationship with the bank. That way, they understood the importance of saving. Thus, even beyond the project life, the farmer is able to now have a relationship that they can sustain without the project being there. Another question which was asked before was that of nutrition. For those most vulnerable people, what do we do? So there was a research which was done to show which of the district was very prevalent to malnutrition. After that, we started making nutrition awareness campaigns on those villages. Then we facilitated some nutrition grants. This nutrition grant was just a small package that included shade nets, fertilizers, hybrid seeds, and things like chicken for protein. This were given to nutrition club households. This is not to say, because we know that people don't work well together. As long as you are part of a nutrition club, you are given all of this package as an individual, not for you to work as a whole. I think in the interest of time, I will stop there because I could go on about how it works. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anne, please, I give you the floor, and if you can maybe also tackle the question on urban food, that would be also great.
Okay, thank you. Well, there were quite a number of questions, actually. I think I'll still leave the question on what happens to the people that have been most already affected, the children. I think that brings us back to the original point of ministries working together. If they are already malnourished, they need to be treated. Now you cannot reverse it through agriculture. You have now to go the health route. It means you have to talk to the Ministry of Health and ensure that they inform how best to feed the already malnourished children so that they can perhaps get better. But I think you'll build onto that much later. Now, concerning food safety and quality assurance, you're very right. But again, I'm going to call back to the issue of ensuring that we have a good enabling environment, the political will, the awareness, and also to, by political will, by enabling environment, I'm talking about, for instance, are there legal frameworks that enable bringing people to book who sell bad food? Because sometimes people do that deliberately. You know, if someone has a little bit of maize flour and they see it's not enough to make 100 kilograms, then they add certain other stuff to make the 100 kilograms so that they can sell. Usually people are doing that because they're desperate for money. We understand that, but there has to be a legal framework that helps to bring such people to book, to prevent such actions. And with that, no individual ministry or department can do it alone. You need the Bureau of Standards, you know, on track, working with legal frameworks of the land, working with the Ministry of Agriculture, working with the local governments and everybody else that is within that sector to ensure that we have the right foods on the shelf. Because that, you're right, most people will get sick because of rancid groundnuts, bad or diluted, you know, maize flour, wheat flour, whatever. And that one is a very, very concerning issue that we need to really speak to. But it's also not the only one. And I think it has been ignored because it doesn't feel like it's the most urgent ones, because people just want to have food on their plates in the first place. But again, we're here to talk about nutritious food and sustainability. So that is why it's an important factor to bring to the table. And then regarding the relationship between having to produce for the market, which may not necessarily be what is nutritious, vis-a-vis actually producing what we need to put on our plates. Again, we are talking about small-scale farmers. We're talking about people who are actually poor, mostly in the rural areas, and who have no other source of income but agriculture. So how do we ensure that those people produce not only for the market, but also for themselves? I think we had another panel in the morning, and this was another question that was discussed therein. And one of the issues people kept emphasizing is we need to invest more. We need to put the money in the areas which matter. And in this case, for instance, investing in smallholder agriculture, making sure that the small-scale farmers are able to produce not just for the market, but also for the plate, for their own plates in the first place. Okay, and then for the market next. Because otherwise what happens, that's the reality, people will produce the good eggs, go to the market. Then if there is a balance, yes, you may eat. If there is nothing left, then you are not the priority to eat, because then we need the money to cater for many other needs, and that's why we need the investments. And I will segue into immediately the question from Peter from Tanzania on climate financing, de-risking agriculture. I think I'm glad to say that we have a colleague from the Environment and Climate Change Department in IFAD who will perhaps make the closing remarks, if I'm not mistaken. And he's a very key player when it comes to climate financing. In the Western Central Africa Division, we have benefited from this skill of his of sourcing for financing, for adaptation and for resilience. We're working with the Green Climate Fund, we're working with the JEF, with the and all these people, because why? And at the moment, actually, what we are trying to do is to invest in the national agricultural banks where they exist, to make sure that those ones are able to support the SMEs and the small small-scale farmers who are organized, maybe in cooperatives or as individuals at scale, so that they can access financing for their agriculture at a minimum interest rate and at a longer timeline, because I think the challenge is that usually they give you an agricultural loan and they tell you it's for this season, but then in that season, if you have it, since it's rain-fed agriculture, again, if you haven't produced, then you don't pay, then you're in debt, then you're finished. We close your chapter, but now we're trying to find how do we address that, and that's the question you asked. We are doing something about that, working with different partners, and working also with, I think, World Food Program, African Development Bank, the Africa Risk Capacity Framework, to ensure that it's not just now rain-fed agriculture, but we are talking about agricultural risk insurance, for instance, weather insurance, all these comprehensive insurances at small scale level, also at country level, to cover the bigger risks at country level, and how are we doing to make sure that the small-scale farmer or the person in the agricultural trade is protected in case of the emergencies using the climate financing that is available. And by the way, there is a big volume of climate financing. I won't talk numbers now because I didn't think about it. Unfortunately, what is coming to the African continent is still smaller in comparison. So we can still access those funds if we are aware and if we are writing the right projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I will give the floor to Fungai. Fungai, I'm really sorry. I need you to address your question in less than 2 minutes. We need to listen also to the minister. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll address the question which was saying most of the projects were looking at prevention of malnutrition. Why prevention, and what happens to cases that are already malnourished? What I can say, if with malnutrition, I would rather say prevention is better than cure, because it happens in different forms, and when an individual has malnutrition, there are a lot of changes that happen. There is impairment of physical growth and development, and with this impairment, it has got long-term repercussions, which result in reduced quality of life, reduced productivity, which in turn also affects, which has negative outcomes on the economy. So it's better to actually prevent. So also when looking at nutrition, there is what is called the 1,000 days of life, where we are saying that's where the greatest impact of nutrition intervention is high, where we are looking at the stage when a woman is pregnant until the child is about 2 years old. So if you try to bring in interventions after 2 years and some damage has been done, it will be hard to reverse it. So in the cases of children where they are undernourished, let's say they've kwashiorkor, depending on the severity of the disease, they will need clinical rehabilitation. And also, if it's moderate, they will need support with food aid or supplementary feeding. But now, if we are talking now in terms of resilience and sustainability, food aid is not sustainable. So rather, we will talk of prevention and encourage communities to do nutrition-sensitive production so that they just reduce malnutrition from the onset. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fungai, and thank you very much to our panelists. You have been really, really fabulous. And now maybe ask for some applause. They have been really great. Thank you for this wonderful conversation. So maybe we'll go to Malawi, to Lilongwe, if the IT people can assist us to actually give the floor to Honorable His Excellency Lowin. Excellency, you have the floor.
Wonderful organization. I was actually interested in the issue of funding, considering that no commercial bank is interested to finance agriculture because of risks related production. This used to be an issue in Malawi. But I would like to bring to your attention that we have actually addressed it, considering that we have so many interventions to make sure that there is financing in agriculture. We have two or more organizations that are funding agriculture in Malawi. First organization is Agriculture Commercialization Project. It's a project that is supported by World Bank. It has a matching grant. Farmers are grouped into productive alliances, cooperatives, such that they are supposed to offer 30% to the grant, and 70% is the total grant. But when we talk of 30%, 20% is in kind, and it's only 10% of the financing that the cooperatives offer, meaning that we have a grant for Malawi with support from World Bank. We are able now to get some assets, and we are also able now to update our irrigation schemes. We are able to purchase equipment. We are talking of tractors, factories. Now we are able to do that. All along, the industry was not attractive to the youth, but because of mechanization and digitalization, Malawi is now able to attract youth. And as I'm talking, we have graduates from college, university, which are grouped together, and they have a warehouse, a plant, and they are now prospering. Another group is the Malawi Agriculture Investment and Industrial Corporation. This one offers the soft loans, and MSCs are now able to get some soft loans to this group, even commercial farmers. Just a few weeks ago, there is a facility that is offered to all cooperatives and SMEs and even commercial farmers, credit partial granting. These groups are now able to offer some collateral to whoever is ready to invest in agriculture. All this is because we want to speak to our direction, Malawi 2063, because it has put agriculture as number one in terms of commercialization and productivity. But in terms of listings, a country also invested a lot in insurance. I would like to report here that African risk capacity did a payout 3 months ago to a tune of about 14 million. So there is some opportunities in investing in insurance, and I will encourage my countrymen to do the same. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable His Excellency Lobin Lowe. It was really a great pleasure. Maybe I have another last question for you, if you may. If PRI and actually work on a roadmap for achieving food system in Malawi, where they provide you a huge number, 433 billion USD, to ensure that you achieve at the same time nutritious foods, and you use climate adaptation to your sector. I would like to know how you would like to tackle, or how are you going actually to put in place that roadmap, and what are maybe some of the assistance that you actually need. Thank you, Minister. Sorry, we can't hear you. You are muted.
But if you look at the implementation, it seems there are so many challenges, and we are going through some reforms because government partners are not impressed with this kind of approach, and we'll make sure that at the end of the day, farmers have some subsidies. At the same time, our government partners are now happy with the way we implement these very soon we should be able to have policies that can speak to the productivity. And you may also wish to appreciate that as a country, value addition has been an issue. We had been focusing on production alone. And at the end of the day, there was no value addition. So now the focus is to go value addition. We are engaged other ministries, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Trade and Ministry of Trade and Industry. There is a special meeting that meets to look at value addition and even export diversity, because as a country we only rely on tobacco as the main export crop. So we are now engaging all these other ministers to make sure that we are not working in silos. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. So now I will give the floor to my colleague Noreen to look at the result of the poll. Thank you.
Okay, so we are closing our panel session. And before we go to the closing of the event, we would like to see the result. Can you put the results on the screen? Okay, so, wow. So many voted for leveraging the collaboration and innovation for effective, more sustainable, and more ambitious interventions for a sustainable food system. The second is to rethink how we produce and consume our food is important. And the third, we need to increase our public and private investment on agriculture and food system. This is what we just talked during the panel session. Indeed, we need more financing, we need more investment if we want to transform our food system to be environmentally sustainable, climate smart, nutrition sensitive, gender responsive, youth inclusive, and sustainable. So before the closing the event, I would like to invite my colleague, Mr. Amath Pathesen. He's a lead for environment and climate at IFAD. Pate, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And maybe I will just sit close to my colleagues. And thank you so much. It was also an inspiring session. Although I think the afternoon we have issue of gathering all the people, or maybe a lot of people are not yet here. They will start coming tomorrow. So from IFAD perspective, what we have as a mainstreaming team, particularly the nutrition part, has not been there before. And suddenly, you know, people know that it's not just to do agriculture, it's due to agriculture, but you look at the diet, even the culture, you know, what we eat is also linked to the culture of where you are, the society you are, the type of dishes and so on. And when it is connected to, you know, the malnutrition, you know, growth and everything from a livelihood perspective, from a family perspective, it's very crucial. We look at it from input, production, processing, up to your plate. And I think you share very, very good experiences. And when we talk about input, processing, and all of that, it's really like the value chain, but the food system. And the food system, from our perspective, has been covered from several experiences in different regions. And those are, I think, elements now we need to collect and start building those business models. And I would like really to thank you so much, and also the Honorable Mr. who connected from his country and sharing also the different perspective from the different also program when you were in a context of COVID, where we've been innovative to integrate from an emergency perspective also that aspect of the mainstreaming area, particularly the nutrition. And I think this kind of coalition building will help us also move the agenda. UN, partners, recipient, government, civil society, private sector, all together to add this at the center of whatever we do. So since it's almost the end of the day and there is still people who are sitting and listening, I think even we are few, you know, whatever you collect here, you are an ambassador and a convener. So you can also influence a mass when you are just one. So, but you can be a group, a crowd, and everybody leave, but nothing happens. So the last key word is then for today, this week, I think let's continue the work we are doing, and you're doing fantastic and great job. And let's also share it and build the momentum and move this agenda by 2030. Thank you so much, and thanks also for inviting me at this important session, although I am not a nutritionist, but I'm always happy, and I've been also reviewing those documents. Thanks again, and you have all a good evening. And thanks to the participants and the panelists and all. Thank you very much.
We hope that you enjoyed this small dialogue we had, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of the HRL Summit. And before the completely closing, I would like to say special thanks also to the IT team there and also interpreters who facilitated all our meeting, and also, of course, the communication team behind the scene. And thank you so much for the panelists, and thank you so much for our...
And we thank you too for organizing this. Maybe you will be also at the photo which we are asking to our colleagues to finish with, that one, the photo of the panelists. Thank you so much.